trucker strike is today 14 days old, and that's a remarkable achievement for an independent group of people in a sector to be able to coordinate and growing their strike to 155 cities. Now, this thing was born out of the explosions that happened in Bandar Abbas the month before that on April 26th. Many truckers died, many truckers were wounded, and shortly after that, the insurance rates went through the roof. Now, in Iran, as you know, about 90% of the goods that are traveling are transported on these trucks. And unlike some of the other countries, many of them, there's about 500,000 trucks, and many of them are privately owned and privately managed. There are a lot of drivers who are living with their own, trying to manage their own truck or hiring a driver to manage the truck. And it costs hundreds of millions of riyals every month just to keep the truck maintained, just to keep it, if they leave it idle, it's costing them something. So these strikes were initially born out of the sense of being unsafe, not knowing after this horrific incident, what are we carrying? What is our sense of safety? So Iranian drivers don't get any danger pay. Their insurance rates went through the roof. The going rate that the government determined for what they should be compensated hasn't changed in a long time. So basically, they were just feeling more and more unsafe. And then they brought up other things that have been ongoing with their working life, that in numerous strikes. There have been at least 5 strikes. One of the biggest ones was in 2018 and 2021, which possibly led to other types of unrest.
You talked about how these strikes spread to over 165 cities. Now, were there other sectors and jobs involved in these strikes, or were other professions joining these strikes?
Yes, absolutely. There are other professions and other groups joining these strikes. The ones that are most visible right now in this sort of perfectly terrible storm that's going on in Iran with Iranian workers is bakers. There is a energy crisis in Iran. Nobody knows why. There are blackouts lasting several hours a day. So these have caused factories, especially small businesses, to completely shut down, and workers have been lost their jobs. Businesses have practically gone bankrupt as a result of that. And a lot of bakers in the middle of their shift making bread, the electricity goes and the dough rots. So you've been seeing a lot of bakers. There's also a large baker sector in Iran as well, subsidized and unsubsidized. At the same time, there's been terrible inflation, so the price of even the subsidized flour has gone up something like 400% in the last 3 months, and it's just become very unsustainable. So they're on strike. Another thing in this perfectly horrible storm is a mismanagement of water that has been going on for many years, but has reached a crisis point. Just yesterday in Foreign Policy magazine, there was an article called The Water Mafia, and that explained how water has sort of become this political football that's only in the hands of the privileged. So many, many farmers are now also joining these strikes. Increasingly, these are converging together. And I think the growing support for the sympathy and the anger from what's going on for Iranian workers and the economy is what has given so many groups the call to support the trucker strike, and for the trucker strike to expand to like heavy machinery drivers, taxi drivers, women bus drivers. Now all kinds of people in the transportation sector are taking part in this.
And how have international labor organizations reacted to the strikes? Have they been supportive?
It has interestingly taken a long time for the international labor organizations at the highest level to answer to this. there are many locals that are joining petitions. Like today, there was a petition for some locals in Unite Here Federation and in parts of the AFL-CIO US Federation of Labor. They've signed on, they're locals. But as far as the big 10 or 11 global federations, just today, 2 weeks after this immense effort has taken place, the International Transport Federation, which is the largest federation of transportation in the world, expressed support in a press release for the Iranian truck drivers. So right now there is the International Labor Organization meetings. There's a tremendous opportunity to, bring some recognition to what is going on with Iranian workers. But at the same time, because a lot of government representatives are in those meetings, not really the independent unions, I can understand why it's sort of being hush-hushed at some levels. But this is a tremendously wonderful thing that the ITF Global today released their support, because that means two things. It means the strikes are still ongoing and the possibility for larger other global union federations to support it is there, and it should happen very soon.
So, how do you see this whole strike resolved? I mean, there are strikes every day. We cover strikes and protests across Iran, in all age groups, all kinds of professions, and but the truck drivers, as you said, was significant because they distribute over 90% of the goods in Iran. So, how do you see this situation being resolved?
I think that right now, because of that perfectly terrible storm that I talked about, the government has mismanaged things for so long that they are practically on a razor's edge. And what we want, I think the way it'll be resolved is to see if the Iranian people can really do something fundamental that will help their situation, not just in terms of labor, but also politically. And because that is probably the best solution that's going to happen. However, for that to happen, we need much more global support, much more international solidarity than we're seeing right now. And I'm hoping that as I'm saying this, I'm kind of also including our own US White House, who's in the middle of negotiations with a regime that most Iranian people are very tired of. And the regime, I believe, views the negotiations as a sort of lifeline. They're hoping for sanctions relief. They're hoping for more of the, more of the status quo, which will lengthen their life, but it's not going to help Iranian workers. So I think the answer to this is it's going to get better when Iranian people have the support of the global labor movement and the political support of different governments in the world. We need to see much more of that than we've already seen. I don't
Well,
see the government being responsive to these continuous chronic problems.
and how have the diaspora supported the truck drivers? Has it been across the board?
I think it has been across the board. There's been a tremendous outpouring of diasporic activity. There are some announced rallies that are going to happen in the next 2 weeks or so over the weekends in like 100 different cities to express support for the truck drivers. And then even inside Iran, independent student groups and other worker groups, reporters have also, risked themselves and put out a joint statement saying that they support this. So everyone's doing their job, but we need the people who are in political power throughout the world to recognize this crisis and to make the right moves, because this is a very opportune and important time in the history of Iran. And I see a bright future if the right things are done.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Emami, for joining us, and I hope to see you soon again as the situation develops in Iran. Thank you.
Thank you so much. پاینده ایران